We are expanding the conversation and joined by Dr. Gareth Tate, the head of the Endangered Wildlife Trust Birds of Prey program. A very good evening to you. Thank you for your time. I believe that the shocking, gruesome scene marked one of the most devastating wildlife poisoning events yet seen in the Kruger National Park. What exactly happened and what did you uncover?
Yeah, absolutely. Since about 2019, we saw a major poisoning event occurring in Botswana, which killed over 500 vultures. And in Southern Africa, I think this is certainly one of the biggest we've seen in a very long time. Effectively, what we uncovered was from our aerial surveys in the morning of Tuesday morning this week, was a really gruesome scene where we discovered an elephant carcass, and this was laced, as you mentioned, with highly toxic poisons, and there were a lot of live and a lot of dead birds, over 120 birds dead, pretty much on scene, and a lot of live birds which we managed to save, and I think that was a really good conservation win out of this particular event.
The 84 vultures that were rescued and that you managed to save, how did you stabilize the birds and how are they doing as you and I speak?
Yeah, so we've been working pretty much throughout the week, 24/7, around the clock, to stabilize these birds and keep them alive. And our team at the Endangered Wildlife Trust, alongside Maholo Holo Rehabilitation Center, along with many vets and interns, etc., have managed to keep them alive through a very kind of strict protocol that we've developed over the years, which would certainly help save a lot of these birds. In the beginning was really important. The first 24 hours were critical. We administered specific drugs to kind of counteract the effects of the toxins given that these birds actually ingested. And through these kind of various protocols that we have in place, we managed to save a lot of birds. And we've got almost a 98% success rate for birds that we find alive. And I think that's really kind of testament to the work that we've done in this landscape over the last 10 years or so.
I understand that the Kruger hosts at least 5 regular vulture species. As we try and assess the impact on the pressures in terms of numbers and the impact on the ecosystem, what's at stake?
Yeah, well, we really are experiencing a vulture crisis in this landscape, and we're on the kind of brink of local extinction within the Kruger National Park and the surrounding landscape. And vultures play a really important role. There's no scavengers out there that can, perform that scavenging role. They are nature's cleanup crew. And once these birds are removed from the landscape, we'll feel really immediate effects. And in terms of this, diseases that spread and proliferate after vultures are lost from the landscape. And so, yeah, that ecosystem service that they provide is irreplaceable, and we are really concerned with the amount of birds we're losing over the last few months in particular, that we're going to start experiencing some of these kind of implications of once these birds are lost from the landscape.
What's your understanding on the motive behind these attacks and the concerns that this is a growing trend?
Yeah, there's many drivers behind what we're seeing out there, and they're quite dynamic and complex across the landscape. But certainly, the targeting of wildlife for their body parts and for their trade and use in traditional medicine is a major concern. And we're seeing a lot of animals, poisoned in particular, harvested for their body parts and their heads in the case of vultures. But we're seeing a lot of lion and a spike in the targeting of lion across Southern Africa. And these animals are butchered for their heads and their paws and their feet and their stomach fats, which are used and prescribed in traditional medicine. And so we really need to address that at its grassroots, and we need to really call out to the end users who are actually taking and using these body parts for traditional medicine to really think about the implications and of this form of traditional medicine. We're also seeing vultures being poisoned because they act as natural sentinels for illegal wildlife activities, poaching in particular, elephant poaching, vultures give away the location of carcasses just through their natural sentinel behavior. And so poachers are going out there and they're systematically removing vultures from the landscape to disguise their illegal activities and prevent law enforcement from following up on their illegal activities. So very complex things to address, but having massive effects and impacts on our local wildlife.
So what long-term threat does this trend mean as we assess the bigger impact?
Well, yeah, the threat is certainly, it is going to have a major impact on obviously the biodiversity and the ecological functionality of the landscape. It's unsustainable, and the form in which they are targeting wildlife is it's a silent killer, and it kills a lot of wildlife in a single poisoning event. You can lose up to 100 vultures, as in this latest case where we lost 123 birds. And the ecological spin-offs to that are severe. A lot of these wildlife that are targeted are apex predators or really important scavengers. And once you remove them from the landscape, you have an ecological imbalance, and you see proliferation in diseases, including anthrax, tuberculosis, and a variety of canine distemper and rabies. And we've seen it echoed in other countries. India lost 98% of their vultures a couple of decades ago, and with that, they saw a massive spike in rabies cases, and it cost a lot of money for government to control that. So these birds are obviously, providing a natural ecosystem service that also has a human benefit. And where there's livestock and an interface between wildlife and humans, we will see immediate effects in terms of diseases in particular, once these birds are lost from the landscape.
Very well. Thank you so much for speaking to us this evening. We're going to have to leave it there. Dr. Gareth Tate, the head of Endangered Wildlife Trust Birds of Prey program, speaking to us about the concerns there as the most devastating wildlife poisoning seen in the Kruger National Park of over 100 vultures.